Imagine you are standing at a busy bus stop during a cold spring rain. Your high-end designer jacket is supposedly rated for extreme mountain conditions. You watch the water bead up and roll off the synthetic nylon surface. Yet despite the expensive technology, you still feel a damp chill on your neck. Your modern comfort depends entirely on a factory in a faraway country. Now imagine standing in that same rain 5,000 years ago. You have no plastic, no Gore-Tex, and no synthetic membranes to save you. You are deep in a prehistoric forest with only your hands and brain. If you think you would simply freeze and perish, you are mistaken. Our ancestors were actually brilliant chemists who mastered the world around them. Welcome to Ancient Logic, where we find therapy in our ancestors' survival skills. Subscribe now because your history is much more clever than you were told. How did ancient humans engineer waterproof gear using only animal guts and grass? The answer will change how you look at your own rain gear forever. Many people believe that ancient humans just suffered through the wet and cold. We imagine them shivering in caves while their leather clothes turned to mush. This is a complete myth that ignores the archaeological evidence found worldwide. In the freezing Arctic, the Inuit people engineered a miracle of applied biology. They did not use heavy hides that would soak up the icy seawater. Instead, they looked at the internal organs of seals and walruses for solutions. They discovered that intestinal walls are naturally designed to be semi-permeable membranes. These membranes allow small nutrients to pass through while blocking larger molecules. When these intestines were dried and sewn, they created the first breathable waterproofs. Water from the outside could not get in, but sweat vapor could escape. This exact technology is what modern companies spent millions of dollars to replicate. You feel the same relief today when you put on a breathable shell. Ancient hunters were wearing the original Gore-Tex thousands of years before us. But how did they make the seams of these jackets truly watertight? They did not have waterproof tape or glue to seal the needle holes. They used a brilliant trick involving the structural properties of dried grass. They would tuck a thin strand of grass into every single stitched seam. When the garment got wet, the grass would absorb moisture and swell up. This swelling created a self-sealing gasket that blocked every drop of water. It was a reactive engineering solution that responded to the environment in real time. This is why you still check the seals on your windows before winter. You are using the same logic of sealing gaps to maintain your survival. But what if you lived in a place where seals were not available? In the North Atlantic, the Vikings relied on a very different kind of science. They used the natural grease of sheep to fight the brutal ocean spray. Northern sheep produce a thick, waxy substance in their wool called lanolin. This lanolin acts as a heavy-duty water repellent for the animal in the rain. The Vikings kept their wool raw and unwashed to preserve this natural grease. They then used a process called fulling to compact the fibers together tightly. They used heat and friction to turn the wool into a dense felt. This material was called wadmal, and it was incredibly wind and water resistant. It was so strong that they used it for the sails of longships. Imagine a massive wool blanket catching the wind and repelling the salty sea. This is the reason you find wool coats so comforting in a storm. Your brain remembers when greasy wool was the only thing keeping you alive. But ancient humans were not just using animal products to stay dry. In the mountains of Europe, they turned to the geometry of plants instead. When the famous Iceman Otzi was found, he was wearing a grass cape. At first glance, it looked like a primitive pile of dried weeds. But structural analysis revealed it was a masterpiece of gravity-based engineering. It functioned exactly like a thatched roof that you can actually wear. The grass was layered in overlapping rows to direct water downward and out. Gravity pulled the raindrops down the length of the long fibers quickly. The water would drip off the tips before reaching the inner layers. This allowed the wearer to stay dry and ventilated at the same time. It is the same principle you see in modern shingle roofs today. You are living under the same logic that kept Otzi warm and dry. In the Pacific Northwest, indigenous groups used the bark of the red cedar. They wove the shredded inner bark into extremely tight hats and capes. Cedar contains natural resins that make the wood itself rot, resistant, and waterproof. By weaving it tightly, they created a surface where water would simply bead. This shows they understood the chemical properties of trees long before modern botany. They were not just gathering materials, but selecting them for specific molecular traits. This is why you still prefer cedar wood for your outdoor decks today. It is a survival choice that has survived for thousands of years in us. In New Zealand, the Maori people created rain capes from a plant called flax. They left long strips of the leaf hanging off the outside of the garment. These strips acted like miniature gutters to channel the rain away from the body. It was a sophisticated way to manage fluid dynamics through simple weaving techniques. But what about the things that needed to be permanently liquid-proof? For boats and buildings, our ancestors turned to the world of ancient chemistry. As early as 5,000 years ago, humans in Mesopotamia discovered bitumen. Bitumen is a naturally occurring tar that acts as a perfect sealant. They coated their reed boats in this black sludge to make them unsinkable. They even used it to waterproof the foundations of their massive brick cities. In the city of Mohenjo-Daro, they built a giant public water tank. They sealed the entire structure with a thick layer of natural bitumen tar. It held water for centuries without leaking a single drop into the earth. This was the birth of the same asphalt technology we use for roads. You drive on ancient waterproofing logic every single day on your commute. In Mesoamerica, the Olmec and Aztec cultures took chemistry even further. They discovered how to extract the latex sap from the rubber tree. They would apply this liquid sap directly to their cotton clothing items. This created the first truly rubberized waterproof slickers in human history. It was a completely non-permeable barrier that blocked every bit of moisture. This discovery is the direct ancestor of the rubber boots you wear. You are walking in the footsteps of ancient chemists when it rains. But staying dry was not just about clothes, but also about architecture. Ancient builders used a mixture called wattle and daub for their walls. They created a wooden lattice and coated it in a sticky clay mixture. The clay provided a water-resistant shield while the straw acted as binder. It was a composite material that performed as well as modern concrete shells. The Romans perfected this by inventing a waterproof mortar called opus signum. They mixed lime and sand with crushed pottery and broken bricks. This created a hydraulic cement that could actually set and harden underwater. They used it to line their massive aqueducts and public bathhouse floors. Without this ancient chemical breakthrough, the Roman Empire would have been dry. Your own bathroom tiles rely on the same logic of moisture barriers. We often think of ourselves as far more advanced than our ancestors. We have laboratories and factories and complex global supply chains for gear. But the humans of the past were just as brilliant as us. They did not have computers, but they had an intimate knowledge of nature. They understood the semi-permeable nature of a walrus's gut without a microscope. They understood the hydrophobic properties of lanolin without a chemistry degree. They were master engineers who solved the problem of survival with creativity. The struggle to stay dry is one of our oldest human stories. It is a story of refusing to be a victim of the environment. Every time you zip up your jacket, you are participating in history. You are using the same logic that kept a hunter dry in 3000 BCE. You are not a malfunctioning modern human who hates the cold rain. You are a survivor who is wired to seek shelter and protection. Our ancestors made sure we could survive the storm to tell their story. Your desire for a dry, warm home is a beautiful, ancient memory. You were never going to let the rain stop you from moving forward. If you enjoyed this deep dive into our brilliant past, please subscribe now. We have many more ancient secrets to uncover together on this channel.
Stay curious and stay dry out there in the modern world, friend. Ancient humans survived the toughest storms so that you could be here today. Their genius is literally woven into the fabric of your everyday life, from the asphalt on your street to the wool on your back now. You are the living result of thousands of years of waterproof engineering.
Take a moment to appreciate the brilliance of those who came before you. They saw a problem in the rain, and they solved it with nature. We are simply continuing the work they started in the ancient forests. Thank you for watching and for honoring the logic of the ancients. Hit the bell icon so you never miss another journey into our past. We will see you in the next video for more survival history.